Welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in the universe of movies. I'm Brandon.
I'm Josh. Happy Halloween! Today is our, fifth episode of Monster Month. Finally here. Seemed like it would never happen, but we finally made it.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
It's November.
It's Monster Month, and today's Halloween.
On the state of recording, it is 11:11.
Oh, I lose two.
Did you set your alarm clock? Dang it. Thank you for listening. Okay, so, this is a little bit of a bonus episode.
Things didn't work out.
Yeah, today's a very special episode. It's the hidden fifth episode, sixth episode.
This is episode 32. Today we're talking about Phantasm, Brandon.
Phantasm.
Get with the program I just did.
It was supposed to be part of Monster Month. Didn't quite make it in, but we're going to do it anyway. Had it been in, it would have been the only part of Monster Month that wasn't an 80s movie.
Oh.
I don't know if you noticed that or not, but this one was 79.
Oh, yes.
The rest were all throughout the 80s.
How about that? Most of our movies are 80s.
Yeah, but this one's not even close to the 80s. This one's 1979.
Yeah.
So, something a little bit different. Before we get into Phantasm, a couple of things. I just saw Thor.
You did?
Yep. Anything you want to ask me about Thor?
Not really.
All right.
What'd you think? Fine.
I'd give it probably like an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
That was my initial impression coming out. I don't want to give too much away. A lot of people are saying it's probably the best Thor movie.
I've heard things like that, yes.
I'd probably agree with that.
Okay.
It does feel different than the other two. It's a little more goofy than the other two. And I know some people are like, oh, Marvel movies are so goofy. And then, compare it to Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man. It does have a lot of funny moments, but also the serious moments are serious too.
Okay.
So it manages to, I think, maybe flesh out that tone a little bit better than those other two.
Did they set up the next movie?
Well, of course, after credits and stuff, they did that. But the movie was pretty much contained into what it is. There's going to be stuff from this movie that'll show up in later movies. But, mostly Hulk. The news was basically there's going to be kind of an overarching Hulk storyline, which starts in this, and it'll play out through Avengers, the next two Avenger movies as well.
Okay.
So he's going to kind of have his own thing going on. And I was worried about what that meant for this movie, but the Hulk fit in really nice. It didn't feel like anything was...
They have him get rid of that stupid armor?
Yeah, that was just for when he came out, pretty much. This is for one scene. There was one scene, speaking of it being kind of funny.
Yeah, he rips one.
No, the humor in this is a little bit different than it is in some other ones. And there's this one scene that references another movie, but not a Marvel movie, not even a Disney movie.
Okay.
But it's a very clear reference to a movie that you probably remember from your childhood.
Okay.
And it was one of the greatest things ever, I swear. I can't wait for you to see that part, especially...
When you get it on DVD, you send it my way.
So, next summer?
Well, you're getting me caught up. Let's see, I finally saw Guardians 2. Gonna see Spider-Man.
Yeah, after you see Spider-Man, you'll be basically caught up. You just saw Stranger Things. I know you don't want to talk about it.
No, I thought it'd be nice to do a episode just on Stranger Things.
I have not watched season 2 yet.
Okay.
I plan on doing it. I was going to start it with my dad. He seemed like he was really into it, so I've just been waiting to go over there.
Right.
I'm pretty interested in it.
Well, let me tell you what happens.
Okay.
And that was about it.
Anyway, that's pretty much it. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Nothing I can think of.
All right. Before we get to the main part of the episode, I just want to say thank you for listening today. If you want to contact us, there's numerous links. However you're listening to us, just check the bottom. Good way to contact us through Facebook or email. Probably Facebook. Yeah. Or if you happen to be playing the YouTube video, just leave a comment.
I checked the email, but...
Yeah. Well, one of these days we'll get somebody to say something to us. We get a few comments every now and then. Yeah. Shout out to Chris Keaton, who left us a nice remark on our previous episode.
Yes, he did.
He caught a couple things that we happened to miss. It was more tie-ins from Friday the 13th to the movie House.
Right.
which is pretty cool. So thanks, Chris, for pointing that out.
Chris.
Well, Chris, from what I understand, is a pretty big movie buff. Yeah. All right, let's get to it. So, Phantasm, 1979. This one's kind of a cult classic. It has a big cult following. From what I understand, this was your first time watching it. Curious to hear what you have to say about it, but first, let's do some trivia.
Very well. The director rented all the equipment on Fridays. He could use it all weekend and only had to pay one day.
Bada bing.
The dwarfs were all played by children.
Bada bing.
The original cut was over 3 hours long.
Bada bing.
Angus Scrim wore suits too small to make him appear taller. He was actually 6'4". He also had to stand on an apple crate for one scene because the actor he was working with was almost as tall as him.
I also think they gave him lifts to make him an additional 3 inches taller.
Yeah. There are several hard rock and metal type bands that have taken inspiration from the movie.
Mm-hmm. I actually heard a little bit of that theme song for the movie is pretty catchy, and I heard a little bit of one of the metal versions of that.
Okay. There are 5 films in the series.
Yes. Bada bing.
The film was originally rated X.
Bada bing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The film was originally rated X.
Bada bing.
And the sphere was done by having a pitcher throw it from behind camera.
Bada bing. I just found that out last night. I was watching some videos on it, and I remember thinking to myself, like, how did they do the part where the sphere is flying around? Like, were they just pulling it on a string or what? And when they said that somebody just threw it and then they played it in reverse, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Do I have pretty eyes? Do you want to put a sphere in my face?
No.
Okay,
all right, so why don't you start us off?
Your first time seeing this movie, what were you expecting?
Well, the copy you gave me had that little mini interview.
I was going to ask you about that. Did you skip that or did you watch it?
I just watched it.
Oh, no. I had completely forgotten.
I was like, well, he must have not had a problem with me watching this, so I just watched it.
Had I remembered, I would have told you to skip it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that affected your viewing.
Well, I had no idea he was supposed to be an alien until
he
said it, so I was like, oh, okay. But the music, the intro music is pretty creepy. So I was like thinking, oh, man, this is going to be really scary. I'm, home alone watching this at night. And I thought it was going to be pretty creepy because the music was pretty scary.
It has very good track to it. Very good musical score.
Yeah. So, answer me this. So, the first thing where you find out that the girl was him, right? Mm-hmm. So, he was making himself like a girl?
Yeah. Either that or the guy just had way too much beer. Well, if he could take on any form he wants, I imagine that the form of the tall man is just another one of those. It's not what it really looks like.
Yeah.
The tall man, he's a great villain, I think. This movie has a lot of things. Original, creative, a mess.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to kind of nitpick some of the stuff in this because of the way it ends.
Okay.
But we're going to do it anyway.
All right.
So, go ahead.
Well, I noticed, like, right off the bat, there was really, almost reminded me of, artsy camera angles where they kind of, follow around certain ways or linger on certain shots. I don't know. It's just kind of strange. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. Mm-hmm. Did you get that impression, or it was me? I
didn't pay as much attention to the camera work as you did, I think. But yeah, go ahead and explain those camera angles.
I just remember they were just, lingering on certain shots, or they would... it was just weird that, when he was, walking around the...
Mortuary?
Mortuary, yes. There.
Yeah, I didn't really notice camera angles as much. I noticed that sometimes the cuts seem to come a little slow. The editing in this movie is odd.
Did he do it? The director do it?
Maybe. So? I think that he did.
Okay. That would explain things.
I know that... I'm pretty sure that he had almost 4 hours of movie filmed.
Yeah.
And one of the problems is, how do you cut that down?
Yeah.
So, I think before this, he had only done 2 other movies. And, this was his first one, really going for it. He had heard that horror movies always make money. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of true.
Yeah.
This movie actually did very well.
Did it?
I will pull that up as we speak. So the budget for this movie was $300,000, and they ended up making $12 million at the box office.
Wow.
So it's pretty good margin there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Horror movies have a tendency to where you can make them for a really small budget. Mm-hmm. And get your money back, because even if not a lot of people see it, it's still enough to make your money back plus some.
Yeah. Okay. So the scene where the kid at the beginning, he's kind of spying on the tall man in the daylight, mind you, but in the graveyard. I thought it was funny, it was scary. Usually they save the scary shots, it's saved for night.
This movie just kind of jumps right into things, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, like, I was like, dang, like, this is scary even in the daylight where he was, like, getting chased.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and, like, they were making it out like stuff was going to pop out from behind those bigger tombstones. Like, I didn't know what to expect.
You could kind of hear weird noises and every now and then get a flash of a Jawa.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, you didn't know where things were coming or going to come from. You had an expectation that, you know, there's all these big things that anything could be.
So you're talking about the character Mike, the kid.
Yes.
Mike is kind of an odd kid.
No.
Do you want to describe Mike at all?
No.
He's very insecure kid. He has problems with abandonment. He's the main character of this movie.
Brother and the woman. I was like,
well, he's following his brother around.
I know, but then like I was like, dude, that's your brother. That's pretty gross.
Yeah, well, that actually happened later in the movie.
I know, but still,
but yeah, it's it's whatever. So
yeah, I was like,
yeah, Mike has problems. He's having issues with abandonment. His parents died 2 years previous to the events of this film.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an older brother, Jody, who's probably in his mid-20s, I'd say, or close to it.
And their other brother just dies.
Well, that was their friend. Jody was in a band.
I thought that was a brother.
Nope. Jody was in a band, and there were 3 of them.
Oh.
So it was Jody, and it was Reggie, the bald guy.
Yeah.
And it was Tommy, who's the guy that dies at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So Tommy dies, they all go to the funeral. Mike is following Jody around because he gets the feeling, or he's overheard, that Jody wants to kind of pawn him off on their aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And go maybe leave town and start his life. He doesn't really want to take care of his little brother.
Right.
And I think he's supposed to be 13 in the movie. I think he was actually 13, the actor.
Okay.
And his name is A. Michael Baldwin. Not a Michael Baldwin, A. Michael Baldwin. And as far as I can tell, he's got no relation to the other Baldwins that everybody can think of. So, do you think that he was a good actor in this?
His acting wasn't what I was noticing. I was just watching the events.
He was just an odd kid, though.
It's
hard to... He had some good reactions.
There were certain shots, I will say, like, it sounded like legitimate people talking. It didn't sound like an act at all. And then some things seemed very over the top and kind of weird. But, like, there were certain shots where I was just like, wow, that really just sounds like that they used just, like, the voice, you know, the tones of their voice just sounded like real people just talking.
Yeah, that was something
Not necessarily him per se, but like...
I heard an interview with the director, and that was something he was trying to go for to make everything feel a little more natural. One of the reasons he cast Reggie in the movie is because everybody in all these movies, they're all like models, basically. Yeah. And here's Reggie with like his male pattern baldness and his weird ponytail in the back.
Yeah.
Just supposed to be more of like a normal guy, you know?
Right. So we talked about the music a little bit. There was like 2 themes I noticed. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I can picture the main theme. Okay. Through the magic of computer, I will instantly know what Josh is talking about. Okay, I heard it. So what about it?
I thought there was 2 separate themes. According to this, then there's the same theme, just one slightly
One's
modified.
faster, one's a little slower down.
Okay. I just thought they were good themes. They were creepy.
Yeah, the du-du-du-du-du-du-du. Yeah. Don't get scared. He looked over at my ET doll.
For me first.
He just wanted to use your phone.
Who do you want to call?
Go ahead.
I wait for you to say home.
Ghostbusters. Anyway. Alright, so yeah, the music in this movie I think was really good and creepy.
Yeah, no, it was.
The director wanted it to be something synthetic, and it came out pretty good, even though it wasn't as heavy on the synths as I think he was expecting it to be.
Okay. I felt like they didn't really, unless I missed something, they didn't really explain a lot who's who.
No, and that's something he did on purpose. I was
kind of confused, like...
Oh, well, as far as who's who, there's some characters. Let's talk about a few of these extra characters in here real quick. There's Blondie and Grandma's sidekick.
Yeah, he just goes over there. I obviously you're led to believe he goes there often enough.
Yeah, these people seem to know him. He might go to the psychic all the time just looking for answers about his parents or his brother. They seem really odd together. Blondie does all the talking. Grandma never says a word.
Yeah.
They almost kind of hint that they know something about the tall man, but then they don't really go into it.
Right.
Or maybe Mike says something that intrigues them about the tall man, because later on, Blondie ends up going to the mortuary to check on things, and then we don't see her again. She disappears.
Right. You never see Grandma again, right?
Or he finds her body later on.
Does
I
he?
think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of weird that they're just kind of in there. I'm sure there were more scenes with them that got cut that would have explained it. There's one character in particular, though, where when I saw him, I'm like, who the heck is that?
Okay.
They were in the movie for all of 2 seconds, 3 seconds. It's when Mike and Jody are running around trying to figure some stuff out. I think Reggie's with them, too.
Okay.
Yeah, because Reggie's the one that bumps into her. So they go back to Mike and Jody's house, and there's this woman in their house. Like, she comes out of a doorway and bumps into Reggie, and she scares Reggie.
Oh, yeah.
And he says something to her, and then that was it. We don't know who she was, or where she went, or where she came from.
Yeah. Well, they jump around so much, too.
Yeah, this is non-linear storytelling.
It makes sense now knowing that it was 3 hours. I didn't know that going in. It was 3 hours long, or 4 hours, whatever and cut down. So that makes sense that things don't make sense.
Throughout the series, they'll have flashbacks that'll show you footage from the first movie that wasn't in the first movie because they use all that extra footage. I think especially the fourth one, like a large chunks of that movie are just parts of the first one that we hadn't seen before.
Now, how many of the cast came back for all the movies? I'm assuming the tall man himself. I don't think Mike, the character, or the actor that played Mike, he didn't come back for the second one. They replaced him, and I think that was at, like, request of somebody that was financing the film. But I think that he did for the third and fourth one. Oh. So he skipped 2, came back for 3 and 4. Reggie is in all of them. He's kind of like the reoccurring character, the fan favorite almost, in a way. Okay.
And while this one is kind of non-linear, has an unreliable narrator type of thing like American Psycho did, where maybe things don't make sense because the person we're supposed to be following along is a little bit off, or maybe there's something else going on. Yeah. Things might not be quite right. I know that I had seen the first 4 movies, but it had been so long ago, I'm trying to remember. Okay. But I remember thinking that the second and third ones especially were more of like your traditional movie layout. Okay. And I kind of remember liking them a lot. Like, especially the second one stuck out to me. And I don't remember a whole lot about it. But I know that I do remember they expand on the mythology of the tall man, where he's from, what he's up to, what he does. Okay. Also, they expand on the silver orbs. Okay. And I think they probably expand on the dwarves as well.
Did you watch them all then?
I've watched all of them except for the 5th one. Okay. Actually, I think I have them all except for the 5th one. I'll have to go back and check.
I thought it was funny when they show, I think the kid comes home and like the brother and the friend are playing music, and then it just dwells on. I was like, wait, is this a music video now? What's going on? And just we'll have to play out their whole song, and I was just like,
They did. They sat on the porch and played a song. It's not something you'd see. Like, this is an independent movie. Yeah. So it's not something you'd probably see in a studio movie where people can sit around and do stuff like that. Yeah. I thought it was kind of neat. Okay. It didn't bother me really.
It's not that it bothered me. I just felt like, how long is this going to last? I was like, what's going on here?
Did it seem to you like they were actually playing their instruments?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like they did, yeah.
It didn't seem like they were dubbing anything in or anything like that. Do you have a fly swatter?
No, not on me.
What did you think
Maybe
of that?
I can find a potted plant. It was, yeah, so they have they get the finger, which he keeps in a box, and I thought for sure the first time, it seems like in most movies when something crazy's happening and someone has something to prove it, when they go to show the other person, it's
gone,
not
it
there,
disappears,
or it looks like something normal. So when he goes to open up the box, I was really expecting, but it was here, I saw,
Or like it just, okay, let's explain what happened. So Mike goes to the mortuary to try and prove that something weird is going on there. A lot of weird stuff happens in those scenes, and we'll talk about more of that later. But what ends up happening is he closes the tall man's hand in the door as he's trying to escape the tall man.
Yeah, and it's just funny how he's just like moving his, that's what he's doing. It's like,
yeah, and he ends up cutting off one or all of his fingers, and it's kind of funny because his hand is in the door, but he's still moving his fingers around, but the door is completely closed.
Yeah, so that it just squished down right here.
That itself is weird.
Yeah.
And I'll chalk that up to him being in some weird alien monster thing. Mm. The other thing is that the blood is almost like a neon mustard.
Yeah, it's something.
It's like it almost has the consistency of maybe like a ketchup or a mustard, and then it has a yellowish
it's
tint
like
to it.
A dull yellow, almost like this Seinfeld thing in front of us here. Yeah, that's what it looked to me.
It almost reminds me of like slime in a way.
Okay.
Maybe not as green though. Yeah, like it's just more yellowish. Anyway, so yeah, that's really weird. He ends up picking up one of the fingers and taking it with him. He has it in a box and he's going to show Jody, like, look what I got. Here's proof that weird stuff is going on.
Yeah.
So he's waiting for Jody. He's got the box. It takes him like a full day or something to show Jody what's in the box. Opens up the box and what's inside? The finger.
The finger. I like how, okay, I believe you, kid.
Yeah. It didn't take much at all. It's just like, okay, here's this finger.
I mean, I guess that if something like this really happened, if I saw a finger in a box that was still moving.
Yeah, with mustard oozing out of it.
Yeah, I guess I would believe it right away, too.
Yeah, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, either you can believe it or...
Right, because there's other movies where people will show somebody
you got this from the joke store.
Yeah, and they still somehow, like, don't believe it, or it's funny when, like, something really crazy is happening, and they see it with their own eyes, but then when they try to tell them, like, oh, and I saw this, too. No. You know, like... But after everything else that's happening...
Yeah, they just dismiss it. They're like, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What do you think that's in there? You know? So, yeah, they have this finger in the box, and they're like, okay, we're going to go get that guy. And then Reg shows up later, too.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the next day, he goes to get the finger or whatever it was.
He wakes up, and the box is moving around?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
Is that what happened? Okay.
No, okay, I remember.
Right.
Sorry, it's been a couple weeks since we've watched this. Yes. So... They're going to take the finger to the sheriff's office to show it to the sheriff.
Okay.
But the box isn't moving around, so Mike's like, what's going on in here?
Yeah. This
slowly opens the top of the box, and inside is the world's biggest fly.
Yeah, it was something goofy looking.
It was very strange.
And it made no sense why.
His finger turned into a fly.
Yeah. And then, like, it was so clear how he was, like... acting.
It's classic in cheap movies, especially older movies.
Yeah,
where somebody's fighting an invisible monster.
Yes, exactly.
Or they're obviously wrestling with a puppet, but like they're just doing it themselves. Probably actually one of the best examples of that's actually good. Like one of the few that are actually good is Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead 2.
Okay,
has to lop his hand off.
Okay,
because his hand is infected and becoming evil, right?
Okay.
And so he fights his hand while it's still attached to him, and he's like literally wrestling with it, like he's doing flips and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what he's doing because you're not stupid, but it looks good. He's actually pretty decent at it. You haven't seen those with Bruce Campbell, have you?
I think I saw the first one.
The first one? Okay.
Yeah. Or actually, no, I think I saw the third one too.
Okay, well,
is that the one where he goes back in time?
Medieval times, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did see that one. For sure. Might have saw the second one.
We'll have to get you to watch the second one at some point.
Okay. Isn't it basically a remake of the first one? Isn't that how it goes? That's what I've heard, at least.
The continuity in those movies is just different every time. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Because, isn't it at one point he's with 4 friends, next thing you know, he's just with his girlfriend. And
yeah, it's like the ending of the previous movie and the beginning of the next movie never match up.
Okay.
As far as that trilogy goes. So... the way the first one ends doesn't match up with the way the second one starts. The way the second one ends doesn't match up with the way the third one starts.
Right, okay.
I'm willing to bet that they did that on purpose. Anyway, we'll do Evil Dead down the road at some point. If only because Bruce Campbell is from Michigan and he's awesome. Or because Evil Dead is awesome. Either way, speaking of Evil Dead, the second one actually kind of reminded me of Evil Dead 2. Like, it's a little bit more... There's more to it. Like, I remember there's like you get like a double barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
Well, they had to up it and do better. There's like a quad barrel shotgun and there's like chainsaw battles and stuff like that. So like more over the top.
Yeah.
This one is just weird.
Yes.
Lots of weird stuff happens. A severed finger that's still alive that turns into a fly.
Yeah. And they get it down the garbage disposal because I think he fights it all the way down the stairs.
Yeah. They get it into the garbage disposal.
And then it pops back out, right?
Yeah, after Reg gets there, he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, he comes in, he's saying some stuff to them. Yeah. He's all excited about something, and they're not talking to him. He's like, what's going on around here? And then here comes the fly again.
Yeah.
One of the, I think, coolest things in this movie are the spheres.
Okay.
Talk about the spheres a little bit.
Sphere is a metal round ball that flies down hallways, makes turns, and
I feel like they expand on it later and they kind of explain what they are.
Okay.
But in this movie, I get the impression they're kind of like guard dogs in a way.
Okay.
Like, instead of having a Rottweiler walk around, he has those things floating around like they're sentries.
It could be, yeah.
And these spheres are pretty sweet. It's perfectly round, metallic ball.
Could be made of Play-Doh, though.
And they work for the tall man.
Mm-hmm.
The tall man also seems to have like a helper, an undertaker or something there with him.
Yeah, and they don't really go into who he is.
No, exactly. We see him. He doesn't look like he's a nice guy. So we see him when Mike breaks in to try and find the tall man right before he cuts off his fingers. And he kind of captures Mike at one point. And after this, before that, one of the orbs was chasing Mike and it flew right over him. He ducked down and it just zips by.
Oh, okay.
Then the Undertaker comes, grabs Mike, and he's going to take him to the tall man. Well, here comes the orb again.
Okay, it got him.
Yeah. Mike jumps out of the way. The orb hits this guy dead in the forehead, right between the eyes.
Yeah.
And it has these two little metallic prongs that come out. So it sticks into whatever it hits.
Yeah, and it's juicing him.
Yeah, and then a little drill comes out of the front of it and basically drills into your head.
Yeah.
And as it's doing it, like the way they did it in this movie was so great. And on a limited budget,
too. Out blood.
They made it so awesome. So it's drilling into your head. It's got these two knives, so it's stuck in your face. And as it's doing it, like out of the back of it, a hole opens up, and it's just like somebody turns the faucet on. Yeah. Here comes this like fountain of blood just shooting out. Like it's just shooting all the stuff from inside your head right out. That was actually in a Turok game, Turok 2, for Nintendo 64. They had a weapon called the Cerebral Bore.
Okay.
And it was a gun. If you pointed it at something long enough, it would kind of lock onto him and you shoot it, and a little ball would come out.
Okay.
Attached to the enemy's head and just shoot all their brains and blood out.
Wow. All right. I thought it was awfully brave of that kid when he's like in the dark. He was actually walking toward the sound of this like growling.
Well, hold on, wait.
No!
Wait, just to go back on
that.
No! When the Undertaker dies, I actually heard this last night. It was rated X at first, and they had to do some work to get it down. One of the things that almost made it rated X still was after the Undertaker dies, he pees.
I didn't notice that.
You didn't notice that?
I did not notice
Mike is sitting there, like, there's blood on the floor and stuff, too, and then you see the guy's legs shaking, and then you see, like, a puddle of urine going across.
I don't remember catching that.
And that's, when people die, they lose, control of their bladder and all that stuff, so in a way that's realistic, but at the same time it's funny that you can watch this thing drill into the guy's head.
Right. But
and that's okay.
Peeing his pants is...
But peeing on the floor, that's too much. Alright, so the growling noises that these Jawas made.
He walks toward it. Like, he was in the dark after he's creeping on his brother, messing around with the girl, which that was really weird.
In the woods at night.
Yeah, and he's like getting all excited about it. I was like, that's pretty gross, dude. And then
13-year-old boy sees the naked girl.
He's like, also looking at his naked brother. I don't know. I just thought it was
his brother wasn't naked. He had tighty whities.
Yeah. And so then basically, he hears this like sound and he starts actually walking toward it. And I was like, what are you doing? And then, all of a sudden this little Jawa runs out.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't describe Mike as a scaredy cat, actually, in this movie. A lot of the things he did took a lot of guts.
Yeah.
Breaking into the mortuary. Actually, a lot of things he did were illegal in this movie.
Yeah, well, he's driving a car. He uses
breaking
a gun.
and entering, using a gun, drinking.
Yeah. And what also I thought was weird, there's a lot of shots in this movie where things are just happening. You're watching things, but no one's talking.
There's a lot of running, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of running. And boy, can that tall man run. I was like, dang! Like, when he's chasing after the kid, I think it was in the graveyard scene, the cemetery.
Yeah.
Like, he was just booking it.
Well, even in the mortuary, when he starts chasing him.
Yeah.
Angus Scrimm, he's a tall guy, 6'4", we said.
Yep.
I believe he was a theater actor to start out. I looked at his Wikipedia, his filmography, and before this movie, he hadn't done a whole ton, and afterwards, it seems like only a horror guy. He's typecast at that point. But he did such a great job. I really feel like the movie's a little weird, a little off. He was such a great bad guy, though.
Yeah.
Right up there. One of the things that we keep saying... Well, hold on. What did you think of the tall man?
I thought he was creepy looking. He was scary looking. He was intimidating.
Did you notice... And this makes sense with what I heard when I was doing some research. Did you notice at the very end, his hair was different?
No, I didn't notice.
So throughout the movie, he has kind of like almost like a Hulk Hogan thing going on.
Yes.
Where he's, kind of bald on top and then he's got like long hair on the sides. Mm-hmm. At the very end of the movie, he's got short hair.
Okay, it was probably a reshoot.
Yeah. They went into this movie not knowing what ending they wanted to do.
Okay.
They had a couple ideas, but one of the things they ended up doing, they filmed a few different ones, and they ended up going back and redoing it to where it was kind of all a dream.
Yeah, the ending was very confusing, but you want to wait to get to that? Or...
Yeah, let's wait. Well, the whole movie is very confusing partially because of that ending. If it's supposed to be surreal and dreamlike, then things might not happen in the right order and stuff might seem weird. Like, even when he's running, like, have you ever had a dream where you're running and it doesn't seem like you're going anywhere?
Probably. I don't remember a lot.
You've never had a dream like that?
I don't recall. Like, I've heard people talk about, like, this guy I work with, Nate.
Dog.
Yes. He was saying something about, like, you know that dream where all your teeth break and fall or they turn liquid? I was like... I've heard that apparently people that's a recurring dream for people. I've never had a dream
lose teeth. I've heard that it's supposed to signify that you're not in control of a situation and it's eating you up inside in a way.
Yeah, I've never had a dream like that. So.
Well, you've never had dreams where you're being chased?
I'm sure I have. I just don't. A lot of times, if I don't tell my dream to someone immediately, I'll forget. I'm very forgetful.
Well, that's the way it works with dreams most of the time.
You see, I feel like when I was younger, I used to be able to remember dreams a lot, but now I can't remember hardly anything that I do.
It's funny, I've been taking a medicine for my asthma, and it seems like ever since I started taking it, I've been having a lot of crazy dreams. Okay. And I don't know if it's related. I mean, it's just a steroid for my lungs. I don't see how that would affect it, but one of a reoccurring dream that I've had, to the point where I got so bored of the dream, like I would know it was a dream. It would be being chased by raptors, like from Jurassic Park.
Okay. That is unique.
Yeah, and it happened so often, like almost every night. And I remember even one time, for whatever reason, my principal of the school I was at the time was in it, and it got him. And I was like, I don't care. It's just... I'd get so bored of it. I'm like, I'm sick of running from these things. Yeah. You know?
Why did you stop?
I didn't have that much control over that dream. Well, nature finds a way. So, yeah, actually, that goes back to the spheres in this movie. Those were based off of a reoccurring dream that the director had. Okay. Where he was being chased down a corridor by a metallic sphere. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they didn't have the technology on them, like all the moving parts and stuff, but like that was something he pulled from his dreams to add to this movie.
So the older brother goes to the mortuary, and then he sees this car, like he gets chased out, and he sees this car coming toward him, and it like stops, and he's got the gun pointed at it because he thinks it's like one of the bad guys or whatever. But it ends up being his little brother in the car, who can clearly see that his brother doesn't know who he is and is pointing a gun at him. But he never says like, "Hey, it's me, don't shoot," nothing like that. Like it's like this big dramatic effect, like, "Oh, it's just you." All
right,
that was kind of goofy.
We are going to nitpick these little things. However, what I mean by it's hard to nitpick with the ending, if the ending is a dream.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay, so, but, I'm not sure how much of a dream they expected it to be while they were filming, because they didn't have that end quite yet. Okay. So we can nitpick it. So, yeah, that's just, like, one of the things they do for suspense in the movie. It doesn't make any sense at all. Some of the things they do make sense. Like, oh, this would happen. Doo-doo. That makes sense. Doo-doo. Like, when he opened up the box and the finger was doo-doo in there.
Doo-doo-doo-doo.
Doo-doo-doo-doo. So, yeah, we just brought that up, how that was realistic. But then, like, he doesn't say, hey, don't shoot me in the face. It's your brother.
Yeah. I thought it was cool that they kind of indicated that he's been here for a really long time. Mm-hmm. So they show this picture, which in itself was, like, really creepy. And they're zooming in, like, you figured out, and then it moves.
Jebediah Tall Man?
Yeah. If they would have not had it, like, become, like, a video where he, like, moves and looks at him.
That reminded me of a scene from It.
It was just stupid.
The 1990s one.
Okay. I've seen it, but I can't remember that part. But, like, basically, it was just more effective, like, when he realizes, oh my goodness, this guy's been here for, like,
yeah, and I couldn't figure out when it was moving, like, if it was literally supposed to be moving around, or if Mike was using his imagination.
I don't know, but I just don't think they should have done it.
Who knows how much of the movie was cut out and all that stuff. I'm sure they even had more to film, too, when it's like, okay, we got to stop and make the movie now. So, this movie actually was in production for quite a while. And, we keep calling them Jawas. Yeah. They're dwarves, basically, that the tall man has. They're super strong. Turns out that they are dead bodies.
Yes, that somehow they miniaturized.
Yeah. They get crushed down either because of where they've been or where they're going.
That could be. When I first saw them and they realized that it's their friend, they don't. I was just like that. I thought it was going to be some creepy like monster or something. I was actually a little disappointed it was just a person.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe...
That idea is almost scarier.
Really? You think so?
In a way, yeah. You think, like, you die and somebody crushes your body, and then your little body is walking around doing things.
Maybe if they would have made it look a little more like a half and half, like a little monstrous, but you could recognize, oh my goodness, that's Paul from,
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, I'm sure they wanted you to recognize him from the beginning of the movie. By the way, the makeup on him, I thought looked horrible at the beginning of the movie, where they had him in the casket.
Okay.
And, like, we've been to funerals. We know that people look different when they're laying in their casket. But when you see him in this movie, like, he's so pale and purple and looks so odd.
Yeah. How did they say he died?
They thought it was suicide, even though he got stabbed in the gut.
That's right. He's the one that in the very beginning with the girl. Oh, okay.
And I think it's kind of funny, too, is they show just their legs while they're kind of doing it in the cemetery.
Yeah. And,
like, their legs are lined up in a way to where I can't really figure out how they were doing it.
Well, they were playing rock, paper, scissors.
That's not how you play Nintendo.
I thought it was funny how the ice cream truck always played music, no matter what. It was anytime it was driving, it was always playing music.
Ice cream truck. I'm glad you brought that up. What did you think of that ice cream truck? Did it look like any ice cream truck you've ever seen?
No.
I've never seen one like that either. Didn't it have, like, no top on it, right?
Yeah, I guess it did.
Like, it was open.
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, if you wanted to, you could just walk up and punch the ice cream man out. There was nothing...
Which is something... I have wanted to do that for so many years, and I just...
And then you could just open up the back and take, your Choco Taco and go. But yeah, that is a really weird... It almost looked like he should have been sitting... Like, the way that this ice cream truck is, the back of it has all the ice cream in it, but it's like an enclosed container that's not taller than the guy driving it, right? Mm-hmm. And the guy is up front in an open area, almost like a motorcycle in a way.
Right.
I picture him holding on to handlebars and doing it with his feet, pedaling. Yeah. I don't know why. But yeah, that's a weird ice cream truck. And then also, the ice cream truck plays almost an important part in the movie later, when the tall man is walking by.
Refresh me.
The idea is that where he lives or where he comes from is supposed to be super hot. And when he walks by the cold ice cream truck with the open door, he's kind of frozen in a way until Reg closes the door again and then he starts walking again.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it happened. It's something... Mike was walking down, like, Main Street.
Oh, is that what they were saying? Okay, I do
That's
remember
what it was supposed to be, but I never
realized
got
that's what they were getting at.
Yeah.
You see... I think because of the fact there's so many times...
Well, that was going to come up again later.
Okay.
It was one of the things that got cut.
Yeah, to me, I wrote in here that it almost felt like 12 people wrote 12 stories, just put them together, and nothing makes any sense. Yeah. It makes sense now knowing that there was a lot more movie that got cut.
I think if anybody out there sees this, I mean, a lot of people do like this movie a lot, and a lot of people... think they can make more sense out of it. I don't. I just see like kind of a sloppy job editing and writing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a knock on the director, because it was his story. He was doing everything. That's not easy stuff to do. Just him being inexperienced at the time. He'd only worked on 2 other movies at this point.
Okay.
And he's gone on to do some more notable stuff. John Dies at the End is one. I've heard a lot of people say good things about that. I have not seen it. Let me pull him up again through the magic of editing. So, yeah, I'm looking at his filmography right now. He did John Dies at the End. Also, have you seen Bubba Hotep?
With you and John.
You did?
With you and John.
I don't remember you being there. Anyway, yeah, Bubba Hotep, I like that one a lot. It's a little bit of a slower paced movie.
Okay.
But, it's fun. Bruce Campbell, how can you go wrong? Also, Beastmaster. Now, you've seen that.
Yes.
And I haven't.
I've seen the first 2 of those. He did Beastmaster, the first one?
Yeah.
Portal Through Time's better.
Okay. But, I mean, you can see growth as far as him being a director, because I'm sure Beastmaster, while maybe not, a masterpiece, was put together a little bit better than this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and also... Incident on and Off a Mountain Road, which is an episode of Masters of Horror, which I brought up in previous Monster Month episodes. It was an episode of a Showtime show where they'd bring in like a famous horror guy, and he'd do his own story, and it's kind of like Tales from the Crypt, except longer. And that one was okay. It was about like a crazy hillbilly.
Oh, gee.
So,
aren't they all?
Well,
oh, burn.
Remember that you said that. Try and remember. Because whenever we get to doing Cabin in the Woods,
okay,
that'll come up again. Anyway, yeah, the director, you know, it was his third movie. It's completely independent.
Okay.
We keep saying that these dwarves are Jawas because they look a lot like Jawas.
Yeah, well, they're hooded. They're short and they're hooded.
Brown hoods.
You don't really see their faces.
Yeah. They don't have the glowing eyes.
No.
Well, Star Wars had already come out in, 77, right?
Correct.
This came out in 79, but it was already well into production.
It was being worked on in 77.
Yeah.
From what I was reading. It took that long to get it out.
By the time Star Wars came out, they were already working on this. So it's kind of a little bit unfair, or just more of a coincidence that those things happen to look like Jawas in a way.
But, I mean, he could have copied it. I mean, he could have liked that look and just took it. I mean, I'm not saying he did, but he doesn't. Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know. I thought I was going to poop. Okay, so... Yeah, it's just kind of... I think it's probably more of a coincidence that they happen to look like Jawas. I guess he could have changed it if he wanted to.
I guess. But it doesn't seem like he had the biggest... Obviously, he didn't have the biggest budget.
I still think they're creepy the way they moved around, and I thought that was clever. Like, it wasn't always kids, I don't think, but during where they had to move around and be more agile, he got kids to play the parts, which was great because when he got certain camera angles on it and you see like these little things jumping up on somebody, they're doing it in a way that looks completely natural. They're not moving around like maybe an actual dwarf would, you know, somebody with smaller limbs.
You're right.
And they're pretty quick too, which makes them even scarier because like these things can catch up to you.
Well, I've always thought that hooded figures are pretty creepy,
but like 3-foot ones even like that. Something about if it's your size, it's scary. But if it's way bigger or way smaller...
Yeah, way bigger seems scarier.
Yeah, when there's a big size difference between you and the thing coming after you, I don't care if it's bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
Like, that size difference just adds to the creepiness.
So, I was wanting to talk about the scene with the shotgun shell, where he uses the shotgun shell to basically blow the door off.
All right, how did he get locked in his room?
His brother was going to go back and locked him in.
With a...
I don't even remember what he used.
Screwdriver.
Okay, screwdriver.
He stuck a screwdriver in the door. I don't know how that works. I guess it's something... I mean, I'm not going to try it on my own door. But, yeah, so he shuts the door and then jams a screwdriver into the door, like, in the crack between the door and the door frame.
Okay.
Which locks Mike in his room.
Yeah. So, yeah, he takes the shotgun shell and he uses to...
He hits it or something?
Oh, yeah, he hits it with a hammer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and I remember thinking, like, one, that's so dangerous. Because, like, you know, shotgun shell has all the BBs in it. And then, two, I was thinking, if you're going to do it, why not at least do it on the doorknob? Like, he does it he blows a hole in there, and then he has to still reach through and, you know, remove the screwdriver. Like, this was kind of weird to me.
I feel like that could probably work.
I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm just saying...
Well, I'm thinking about it now from, like, a Mythbusters perspective. That seems like something that they would have or could have covered. Write to us. If this has been on Mythbusters, do you know if you can explode a door with a shotgun shell and a hammer?
I think you probably could.
All right.
I don't want to try it.
We're not suggesting that anybody try it, but if you
happen to do it,
send it to us. Just let us know. Put it on YouTube for us. Next note. I thought the Jawas kind of sound like parakeets.
I didn't notice that.
They made a lot of weird noises.
I was going to say the guy puts his hands on the two pillars, which hurts the woman. Do you remember that?
Hurts the woman?
I think it was the lady in lavender, they call her.
Oh, okay.
Like, it hurts her, which makes no sense, and then suddenly you got this giant vacuum cleaner that turns on. And
that's one of the few things that I think they actually, like, that worked out well with the editing and the storytelling in this. Because earlier, you see when Reg and Mike are going to play the music, he gets out the tuning fork.
Yeah.
So he's using the tuning fork. He knows how that works, like the vibrations and
right, but why did putting his hands on the pillars hurt her? Or him?
Well, it's alien technology. We don't know. He did something.
But that's what I'm getting at is, like, this movie, it's like, it's almost plotless. It's like...
Somehow he was connected.
Really weird, like, but, you know what I mean? Like, why would a human being just put their hand on this thing?
It changed, maybe the frequency that he changed it to harmed it.
Don't try to defend them.
So, just tell us what the forks are.
The forks?
The two poles.
I guess they're saying it was basically like a gateway. Mm-hmm. Like almost like a wormhole.
Yeah, that's what happens. The three of them are walking around in the mortuary.
Yeah.
and they go into the room where the tall man has been, but they haven't been in it yet.
Right.
They walk in, it's a completely white room. It looks futuristic in a way. There's nothing in it except for a bunch of little barrels, which have little people in them.
Yeah.
And these two metal poles sticking out of the ground. Well, something happened. They throw something into it by accident.
Something
Something
gets thrown and they
there.
see that it doesn't...
It doesn't go through to the other side. Like, it hits a doorway.
Yeah.
An invisible doorway. And Mike ends up going in there and getting sucked in. And he can actually see where he thinks that the tall man is from.
Right, and then he automatically just figures out that it's like their world and it's his planet.
Well, it looked like another world. Everything was red. It looked like a hellish desert in a way.
Yeah.
Everything was red. There were a bunch of dwarves down there doing something.
Yeah.
They were all lined up, moving things. And he could tell that the gravity was stronger, I guess, because he was getting sucked down.
But was that when all the wind was pulling them through, or was
that was afterwards? Because like Reg or Jody had to reach in and grab him and pull him back out.
Okay.
And then that's when, at a certain point, Reg notices that it's like a big tuning fork. It's something working off a frequency.
Okay.
And when he touched it and started messing with it, it changed the frequency, which ended up opening or closing the doorway or doing something.
Is that when the wind's blowing, the house is turning colors, and...
Yeah. Star Trek reference, go! The effect that they used on the house is the same as the transporter effect from the original series.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
All right.
There we go.
I didn't.
Bada bing.
It just like this movie is so strange.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place. It's a bit of a mess as far as the writing and editing goes, and yeah, there's a lot more that they explain further in the series. But if you just watch this one, you're going to be confused. It takes multiple viewings, and with the twist ending that it was all a dream, or was it?
I know. I thought it was funny that his brother leaves him alone after the tall man came.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was like, why would you leave him? Do you remember that? Like, he takes him back
yeah,
home.
Well, he keeps doing that over and over again.
Like,
you stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, what?
The car in the movie is pretty cool.
Their car?
Yeah, they're driving a Cuda.
Okay.
Yeah, that car is pretty sweet. My dad actually, I told him we were doing Phantasm. I was surprised he even knew what I was talking about. He's like, oh, they just did the car for that on Graveyard Cars.
Okay.
I guess I have never heard of this show, but my dad likes car stuff. He watches a lot of TV shows about remodeling old cars and all that sorts of stuff. So there's a show called Graveyard Cars.
Okay.
And I'm looking here and it says on season 2, episode 13, they did the Phantasm Cuda. So literally the car from this movie, they were doing something with it. I haven't seen it. Looks like on YouTube they have the whole episode. So if anybody wants to go check that out.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sweet car. It looks like they may have changed it into a hearse. Based on this thumbnail.
So his brother must have been really good at golf, knocking the boulder. Like, it just rolls down perfectly.
Yeah,
like,
they at the end of the movie, they trap the tall man in a mine shaft.
Yeah.
And all these rocks, they get all these rocks to come down, and they all just kind of land right in the hole.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the movie, it turns out that Jody's been dead for some time.
Yeah, and I was like... I was so dumb by that point. I was like, I don't know what's happening.
It's kind of like he wakes up from a dream. Jody's been dead for a while, and even though Reg had died earlier in the movie, he's still alive, and he's the one that's taking care of Mike.
Yeah.
And he's the one watching after him, and they're both sad about Jody's accident. A car accident, I think is what they said, or was that the parents?
I don't remember.
Either way, the parents and Jody are dead.
Yeah.
I guess when you go back and you look at the movie and you examine it, like, the tall man represents death. He's supposed to be an alien from another dimension, but like he might as well be the Grim Reaper.
Okay.
And he's gonna come and get you no matter what eventually, right? Mike is having issues with abandonment, people leaving him, and not being able to let go. And he's really sad about his parents. He can't get over their death. And by the end of this movie, you figure, okay, he's traumatized by Jody's death now. He's all sorts of messed up. Mm-hmm. And that's what this movie's kind of about. Even when he stuck his hand in that box.
Yeah.
And they told him, don't be afraid. Mm-hmm. They're trying to tell him, don't be afraid of death. It's a natural thing.
See, I was thinking that was about when he realized that the gateway didn't just, that led to something else. Like,
well, that also came up. Yeah, I was thinking that too. But I think it applies to both situations. Like, don't be afraid of the gateway. Go in the gateway. You can check it out, even though he almost fell to his death or whatever. Yeah. And then also, don't be afraid of death. You can deal with it. Having to beat the tall man is having to get over somebody's death. In a way, when you look at it from that perspective, the movie feels a lot better. Like, it makes a lot more sense. Like, a young person just trying to deal with all this,
sure,
all these losses around him. And that's a tough thing. Like, I've lost grandparents when I was about his age. She was supposed to be 13. I lost my grandpa and my grandma in a short time around that age, and it sucked. It wasn't, a fun time. Yeah. And I can see that. I guess the movie ended up being actually pretty popular with kids his age at the time. And I don't know if they looked at it just because they thought maybe Mike was cool because he was drinking and driving cars. Yeah. Or maybe they could possibly relate to him struggling. His brother doesn't want to take care of him. His parents aren't around.
I didn't get did you... So they said flat out that the older brother was trying to pawn him off against uncles? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, he had overheard Jody talking to somebody. He's like, I love my brother, but, I got to get out of this place. I'm going to give him to Aunt so-and-so.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that happens at the end where Mike wakes up. Jody's actually dead. Reg is still alive. Mm-hmm. Mike goes back up into his room, looks in the mirror, and behind him is the tall man.
Right.
Boy! And he turns around to see the tall man, and then a dwarf comes out from the mirror and grabs him, pulls him into the mirror. Mm-hmm. Which, that's a cool ending. He wanted an ending that would kind of like one last boom for the audience.
Yeah.
One last thing to kind of shock them and shake them up as they're leaving the theater. And that's effective. A couple of things like maybe that could have been done better. Like if maybe it was more planned out.
Yeah.
When at the beginning of the movie, he's watching the funeral. And like if they flash back to that and it was the exact same scene, but instead of it being Tommy, it's Jody's funeral.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So if they had a flashback to that.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Then that would have kind of helped it all tie in a little bit better if they did a few flashbacks of stuff we've already seen. Mm-hmm.
But then you realize it was Jody instead of the other guy.
Right, which would help kind of piece everything together.
So he was imagining that Jody was still with him and creating this series of events to try to cope with that.
I think that would have, along with a few other things, tweaks here and there, that kind of arc would have been a lot better.
Right.
It would have made a little more sense. In a way, I kind of wish that this movie had like a high budget remake, but at the same time, I know it would be terrible. Mm-hmm. I have not seen the newest one yet. I've heard mixed things about it.
Wow. Yeah.
If this one interested you at all, I'll get the second one out to you. You might like that one more because it's more of a traditional movie.
Okay.
And I think it came out like 7 years after this too, so it's mid-80s by the time they got the second one out.
Right.
So, was there anything else you wanted to bring up in your notes?
Well, like we kind of said, I didn't know this going in much about it. You told me not to read anything about it, so I didn't. So, like I said, it just felt like very sloppy and all over the place. And my thought was, like 20 people wrote, small parts and they just gave it to the director and shuffled it up and just made it. But now knowing that there was so much extra stuff shot, I can kind of understand why at least it's such a mess. Mm-hmm. But this was not necessarily my movie. In some ways, it almost felt like a student film.
Well, he was pretty young when he did this.
I guess you can kind of see, for lack of a better way, like inexperience. You can kind of tell.
Well, I was going to say, I brought this up earlier that I was going to mention George Lucas, and I've been critical of him on the podcast in the past.
Yeah.
Anybody that talks to me about Star Wars knows I kind of don't like George Lucas all that much.
Right.
I think he's kind of a crazy, arrogant guy now. Mm-hmm. But, this came out around the same time as that first Star Wars movies. Star Wars movie. They're both independent movies, and I don't know how much experience George Lucas had before Star Wars. I know he had done, what's that futuristic one?
THX
9/11.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a short film, like a student film.
Okay, and then he had done the 50s movie.
American Graffiti,
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how much work on movies he had done before that,
yeah.
But that first Star Wars movie really shows that he did have a lot of creativity. He had a lot of talent for what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it drove him mad. That by the time the prequels came out, he was totally insane.
Yeah.
But like that first one just turned out so good, and he was so sure it was going to be so crappy, but he really nailed it.
Well, what do they say? Art thrives on limitations. Basically, I think his inexperience maybe in that case got some more creative juices flowing. But I also think some people give George Lucas too much credit.
Well, I do know
team of guys that he had
Yeah.
working with him that had ideals of their own. I was reading about stuff where, you know, he wanted certain things certain ways, but basically certain people kind of insisted like, oh no, like this makes more sense like this, or this would be cool. Like that.
Yeah, okay. And he had more experienced actors. Obviously, at that point, you know, they were more experienced and further ahead in their acting careers than a lot of the people in Phantasm were. Like, I'm thinking back specifically, like, to Blondie, who sat with Grandma. She may have as well have been a log with a face painted on it. Yeah. She was so wooden. You know, you go and look at Star Wars, you know, Mark Hamill isn't the greatest actor, but he was good in that.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher wasn't the greatest actress. She was good in that.
Yeah.
She's pretty decent in most things I've seen her in. You know, Harrison Ford is great, obviously. And
Please stop caring.
Yeah. Just he had a group of experienced actors with him, people that could feed him advice or suggestions or ideas.
Yeah.
This guy was kind of surrounded by people that were just there to make a movie.
Right.
And he didn't know exactly what he was doing.
Just a lot of inexperience all around.
Yeah, so that just really goes to show like the difference between the two. Like, I think this movie is super creative. There's a lot of fun stuff in it. Some of the special effects, especially on the low budget, were really good. I can't think of too much. Like maybe the worst looking thing in the movie is when they beam the house up.
I was thinking maybe the insect, the finger turned insect thing was pretty bad looking.
I feel like that has a certain amount of charm to it, though.
Okay.
There's something charming about the way that like that bug was. Oh, I think it was actually the director's mother that made that.
Okay.
If I heard right, I could be thinking of a different movie though, so don't quote me on that.
How old was he?
I think he was in his early 20s when he made this movie. So yeah, and then Star Wars obviously became a huge hit, and like this is a huge cult classic. But you know, maybe had the polish been there, this could have been maybe not quite Star Wars.
Like maybe if he could have got a few movies in first to get some experience, to hone his craft a little bit. You're saying?
Well, he did it. He made a movie that made a ton of money.
Well, yeah. No, but I'm saying from a critical point of view, like I understand this.
From a critical point of view, had
people that like it despite all that,
had he had more in his resume at that point, he probably would have. He wouldn't have shot 4 hours a movie.
Yeah.
He probably would have had it more planned out ahead of time because I know a lot of it they kind of just made it up as they went, which you know doesn't help your continuity and you know the pacing of your story.
Yeah. And maybe if he could have, we're thinking he edited it himself. Yeah,
I think so.
Maybe if he could have got some.
I remember him saying something like Beastmaster because that was a studio movie where he wasn't in control of everything and he hated it.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, do you want to bring anything else up? You ready to grade it?
I think
Go ahead with your grade. I want to hear yours first.
I
already know that my grade is going to be higher than yours.
Yes, that is. I think every movie so far, your grade has been higher than mine.
Okay.
Most of mine have hovered in C's. Since
I've been in this escape pod with you.
Yes.
A lot of the movies we've done, I've kind of like picked out a little bit.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them I've picked out.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much let you pick whatever you want.
Yeah. So if anybody out there doesn't like the movies we cover, write me some hate mail. Tell me.
Write us anything, my goodness.
You know, we do take suggestions. We just did one, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Right, yeah.
We're going to do another request next month.
Oh, yes, that's right, yeah. Okay, yeah, so basically, despite the reasons, to me, this was kind of a mess. There was just so much stuff that to me didn't make sense. You know, you're just watching things happen. And then no one's talking, or then there's people there that, like I said, you know, the girls that he was in the car with, like, who are they? Like, you know, like you said, they go home and who's this woman? Things just didn't make sense for whatever reason, you know, whether it was poor editing.
Now, given the nature of the ending of the movie, like a lot of this was a dream. Stuff doesn't make sense in dreams a lot of the times.
I suppose.
And that way, the sloppy editing and writing almost works out for the ending.
I suppose. I suppose you could give it that pass.
Would you think upon a rewatch you might be more lenient?
Yeah, possibly.
Look at it maybe through
possibly.
different
And
classes.
I actually was, because it's been, you know, this was planned to come on Halloween week. You know, things came up. Actually, this is my fault. A lot of things came up on my end. that prohibited us.
It's your fault for having itchies.
Yes. So I was actually planning on watching it again to get a more fresh, because it's been a while.
So you give it an...
But regardless, I'm going to stick to my guns on how I felt.
At the time.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm going to give it an F.
Okay.
I was thinking, I'm going to give it a Z.
All right. So, yeah, for me, like, it is kind of one of those movies where, like, if you watch it a couple times, it does get a little bit better. I had already seen it a couple of times.
Yeah.
And knowing the ending kind of helps you, although I had forgotten it. I'd forgotten a lot by the time I rewatched this.
Yeah.
But, you know, the ending does kind of, like, lend itself to the surreal nature of the rest of the movie. Stuff isn't exactly in order. It's unreliable narrator. You know, characters popping in and out that, you know, you don't know who they are or what they're doing. So that kind of adds to it in a way. And the creativity, you know, the orbs, you know, it's not a ghost. It's not, well, it might be a demon. They never really explain exactly what he is, but basically it's a being from another dimension who is harvesting bodies on Earth to use as his slaves. But for what purpose? Yeah. We don't know. And just like the idea of that, like, this is 1979 and it's so far ahead of everything else. It has male main characters, when a lot of the movies coming out in the 80s and 70s, they were all focused on, like, the female character fighting back.
Okay.
It just kind of sets it apart. It's different. And a lot of the different parts of this movie make it stand out in a good way, I think. I'm going to give it A+.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm going to give it a... I mean, it is sloppy to the point where until you get to the end, you're kind of a little bit frustrated in a way.
Yeah.
And that partially is because it's so interesting, too. You're struggling to try and figure out what's going on, but it's bouncing around all over the place. Certain things don't make sense. I'm gonna give it like a D+.
Okay. You know, I also was expecting it to be scarier. Nothing scared me about it. I don't know. For some reason, I always assume like these 70s and 80s movies are actually, like, the horror movies are actually going to be a little scary. And I thought maybe it might actually be a little scary, but it didn't really scare me at all. But what I wanted to say about you is, okay, so you've watched this movie several times. You said you saw the sequels, which you said helps build up on who he is, what the orbs are, and I'm assuming you said, didn't you even say about the dwarves? It explains them a little better.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So you had this foundation. Here's my Star Trek reference. And I said this before, but oh well, you're going to hear it again. So I was watching this thing with Nicholas Meyer, who did Star Trek 2 and 6, which are arguably the best, at least of the original series. And he was talking about, if you look at the original series itself, there's really not much development for, like, Chekhov, Sulu, Scotty, Uhura, etc. But when you get to the movies, they do a little bit more with those characters. Certain movies did it better than others, but regardless, you get a little more with them and understand them a little better, whatever. So basically, that when you go back to watch the original series, since you now have future knowledge, so to speak, of, like...
It gives more meaning to those characters.
Them. Yeah, because you're seeing, like, a little... Like, you know, like, some stuff they finally explain about, like, you know, Sulu or Scotty, and it just gives them a little more depth, so that when you look at this very one-dimensional character in the original series, you can kind of see, like, well, I know where they're going to get to. So it kind of enriches them now. And I'm thinking maybe for you that helped you out, because you saw the movie... You saw the sequels and you understand all this stuff that I have no idea.
Well, I will say when I rewatched it, I was getting a little bit frustrated with it too. Like, I'll pull up some of my notes real quick and we can have this in the episode. That's fine. I'll go through. Let me go towards the bottom. There's like a lot of question marks. Parents in the coffin, you know, the coffin was empty. Mike shotguns a cerebral bore. What did Reggie do? Where's that noise coming from? Purple dressed lady stabs Reg. Yeah, just like all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Well, my final note in here says Mike is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one actually opens up with Mike in a mental institute or something. Like, it picks up right where the first one left off.
So he didn't really get pulled through the mirror then when you get to the sequel?
I think not. I mean, it's been... so
it's supposed to be like...
I saw these on cable, like on demand.
Okay.
I want to say 2006-ish.
Okay.
Something like that. Like, it's been that long since I've seen all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember thinking I liked the second one a lot more.
Okay.
just there's parts of it that are really cool. I like the idea of an interdimensional being going around doing devious things that can trick people. It's just different. It's not an alien from outer space. It didn't come down in a saucer.
So they flat out say in the sequels that he's an interdimensional.
Well, that's what they say in this one. I mean, well, what was that portal they were going through?
I thought didn't he actually call the kid Mike, assuming he knows what he's talking about? Didn't he call it another planet?
He said it was another planet, but he don't. Yeah. What does he know?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. When he said all that, I was like, how do you?
Yeah. You know? Well, I think if you watch the sequels, they kind of explain it out that like he is going from small town to small town, and like.
He must not be doing it too often if he's been there since.
Well, I think by the third or fourth one, it's almost post-apocalyptic because he's gotten everybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because in the first movie here, they show him that he's been in this town for
one of the cool things I think that they did, if I'm remembering right, is like you can go to a small town, they'll have like a legend, like you know how that bridge collapsed in Ohio.
Yes, the Mothman thing.
Yeah, the Mothman thing. Well, like, small towns with, like, little legends like that. Oh, we had a bunch of miners that got lost, blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows exactly what happened. Well, they kind of explain all those away as the tall man was there collecting bodies for whatever he's doing. They explain the spheres, what those are exactly.
Okay.
There's actually a really cool twist, I think, in the fourth one with those spheres.
Okay.
I almost want to just tell you about it. I'll just tell you about it. If nobody wants spoilers, turn off the podcast. All right, so here we go. So it turns out inside of those spheres are like shrunken brains from the bodies that he takes. And I believe in the fourth one of those spheres is actually a good guy. It's Jody. That's kind of a cool twist, isn't it?
Yeah, so he helps his brother?
Yeah.
So Jody did get killed. They don't bring him back.
Right.
But
he comes back as a sphere.
Right, but they don't bring him. Okay, so when did he get killed?
Sometime before the events of the first movie.
So I wonder...
I think he got killed, and then Crazy Mike is dreaming all that, and that's what we're seeing. Because of the death of Jody, he's going through and doing all this stuff. Because obviously Reg didn't really die.
Yeah.
But, the movie is such a weird, beautiful mess. Alright, so yeah, coming up on the podcast pretty soon, we're going to have The Iron Giant.
Yes.
We're planning on having The Abyss.
Yes.
We're also going to start doing some Marvel movies soon. Marvel's almost coming to the end of what they started all the way back in Avengers, the first movie.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to start at the very beginning. We're going to do Iron Man soon.
Yeah. Back when I was excited about them.
We have another request for Christmas. We're going to do, at least one of our favorite Christmas movies. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for all of that stuff. If you have any requests or questions, send them to us. Comments.
Criticism. We'll take it.
Yeah, criticisms. Why not? We'll read it on the air. You can call us a funny name.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. We are at our stop. We have to refuel on dilithium crystals again.
I gotta pee.
And Josh has to get out to pee and probably pick up a green chick.
Okay.
I don't know. What would Captain Kirk do?
Yeah.
So we'll catch you when we get to the next stop.
Thanks for listening.
Bada bing. Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, my gosh. Why are you rubbing your belly button like that?
You know why.
I can't handle that look.